Hey guys, project-zodiac here. I'm back with another video, and this is actually going to be a follow-up to my video essay that I made not too long ago on if Xenoblade X connects to Xenoblade 3. In that video essay, I basically said that yes, they do, and then I went on to explain how I think so. And also in that essay, I said that before Xenoblade 3 released, I did have a few theories on Mira being Aionios, but that I no longer think that that's the case. But when I was editing that video, I came to realize how similar the map and placement of things are between Mira and Aionios, especially when you turn Mira upside down. So I wanted to make this essay as a follow-up because I do want to talk about some of those other possibilities about Mira and Aionios being connected and how Xenoblade 3 and Xenoblade X can also be connected. But real quick, here's the spoiler warning. From now on, there's just going to be a bunch of spoilers for all of Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X. So if you guys don't like spoilers, don't want to know about the endings or beginnings or any spoilers at all, definitely play these games first. So with all that said, let's continue with the video. So first, let's talk a little bit about what I used to think, amongst some of the things I still do think at this current moment. So before, I used to think that it could have been a planet that merged with the other two. In other words, Mira could have been a planet that merged with the landmasses of the other two universes, but I no longer think that's the case. I also had a theory that Mira was its own separate universe after Klaus did his own experiment, but that was basically debunked when we see that the universe was split in only two parts in Xenoblade 3. So I also thought that Noah would need to get the people of Aionios to Mira, and while that would have been a really cool theory, those were basically the theories I had that I no longer think is the case. But here are the ones that I think are still valid. So basically there are now 4 possibilities on the status of what Mira is or where it is, and we'll get to the reason behind each of these in a little bit. The first option, basically, that I wanted to talk about is that Mira is a planet in the Xenoblade 2 universe, but before the universes merged back. The second is that it is a planet that's between the universes of Xenoblade 1 and 2 after they split. The third option is that it's a metaphysical planet. And the last option is that it could be Earth reformed after the two universes form, to be one again in Xenoblade 3, but many years later, and when the white whale crashes on Mira, they actually crash on a reformed Earth. So I guess you can say there's also a fifth option, which could be a mixture of all of these as well, or some of them. Either way, these options can all explain why Mira has information and things from both universes. Now let's break down each of these theories in details, but let's talk about the least likely ones first. For the first one, as I said, it could be a planet that has always been there but missed the split of the universe and stayed in the base universe, which is the Xenoblade 2 universe, which again is where Klaus came from. So it could be that the planet has just been there the entire time basically. This works as it doesn't really contradict a lot, especially since it will make sense that the travelers of the White Whale would land on the planet eventually. And since we don't know how long it took for the universes to split, we can assume that if it took a while, then it could have still given the crew of the White Whale some time to land on the planet that stayed in the Xenoblade 2 side of the universe, which would be planet Mira. The problem with this theory though is, if this is a planet that has always been there, why does it look almost identical to Aionios? Why does it have things from the Xenoblade 1 universe that was made only in the Xenoblade 1 universe along with things from the Xenoblade 2 universe? And if it has always been there, what happened to it when the universes separated or merged? Because we're told in Xenoblade 3 that the merging of the universes causes a type of cataclysm just like it did when it shifted. And we know that the universe as a whole did suffer a huge cataclysm basically when it split. So we can assume that Mira did suffer a cataclysm as well if it's in the universe of Xenoblade 2 as its own planet. So wouldn't that also mean that it was destroyed either during the split or during the merger basically? So how is it that they are still alive basically in Mira? Unless all of the events of Xenoblade X takes place right before the universes do fully split, making them unaffected in the events of the story. But this does not answer all the mysteries that the planet has. The next point is a way to counter this issue with this first option that we just talked about. So the second point is, instead of Mira being a planet that is set in the Xenoblade 2 universe and after Klaus does his experiment or even before it, what if Mira is a planet that got lost in the split of the universes and is a planet that is set between the two universes, stuck literally between them, and that's why it's affected by both of them? Or it could just be a planet that has always been between universes and was only made accessible due to this split. This would explain why there are Xenoblade 1 universe only things in Mira, also why there's Xenoblade 2 things as well. But that doesn't explain how people from the White Whale could have landed there. Well, they could have been going so fast that they could not have been affected by this shift, and next thing they know, they got stuck on a small cluster of moons and the other planets that are between the two universes and just not know it. The big issue with this though is, even though this would explain things from both universes and why Mira is so strange, it doesn't really explain why it looks like Aionios or how people are affected by the planet in extremely strange and mysterious ways. But now, with all of that said, let's go to the last two options, and these are probably the more concrete options that we have. The first of these two is that Mira is actually a metaphysical planet, one that is more like an actual part of the higher power of this universe manifesting itself as a planet. Or maybe it's a planet that was created as a haven basically by this higher power. Maybe it can appear at any time and disappear at any time, and maybe it decided to appear in order to help save humanity from Klaus's experiment so that humanity can survive. This would then explain how people that landed on Mira survived the universal split, if the split happened fast, and why it is so strange overall, and why it has things from both universes, and why Nopon even say they are native to Mira in Xenoblade X, but yet they have information from both universes. Which would then also mean that the Nopon mostly unknowingly could be some kind of spiritual beings that are connected to the higher power and to the other universes, and basically made to help humanity. Kind of like guardian angels in a way, but different. This would also explain why the Nopon are freed from Mobius and the Flaming Clock in Xenoblade 3, yet are still by human sides. And it would also explain why some of them don't have ages, or why the Archsage wishes to see people from Xenoblade 1, X, and 2 together and has knowledge of them in general, even though Shulk and Rex and Alma meeting each other in Xenoblade 2 is technically not canon. But anyway, this point about it being a metaphysical planet would also explain why people are alive on Mira when they should be dead, and all of the other mysteries that happens in the planet. It would also explain why Aionios is very similar to Mira. The reason being that since Zed is who made Aionios and Zed manifested from people's wills and subconscious, the game does talk about the collective unconscious and how we can tap into memories from our past lives or ancestors, and with that, it can basically be seen that since Zed comes from the thoughts and desires of humans before he manifested into the physical world, he was basically in the collective unconsciousness, which is again part of what connects all humans to one another, which then means because Mira is a metaphysical planet connected to a higher power, and since the Cimmerians in Xenoblade X are said to have come from Mira, and they are the ancestors of humans that settled on Earth, that makes humans have a metaphysical connection to Mira, as their ancestors came from there. And since Mira is a planet seen that's basically as a refuge, as I explained earlier, and that it is a planet that could be connected to a higher power, Zed could have seen that and made Aionios look like Mira because of its connection to a higher power, and how it is a planet for safety. He also might have thought that a higher power was not present in the situation the universe is mixing together again, even though the higher power was actually there. So Zed tried to step in and use the layout of Mira and made Aionios. So at this current moment, out of all of the four theories, this is the one that makes the most sense, especially when looking at everything surrounding Mira, the themes and concepts of the games in general, and using the lore that was established within all of the Xenoblade games as a whole. But there is an alternative to this, and that's the next and final theory I have so far, even though I don't think that the next theory is the best one. The next theory is that Mira is Earth and Earth is Aionios. Like I said at the start of this essay, Mira could be a reformed planet Earth after many years after the universes have merged. With this theory, I think it could be that the humans leave Earth before it was destroyed by Klaus's experiment, as seen in the intro to Xenoblade X. Then they are chased for at least 2 years in at least light speed travel, or maybe even faster. In fact, we can assume it was faster than light speed travel because Elma does give humans the technology that does that. And if that's the case, then a lot of time would have passed in the universe. We can't really calculate how much though, but it could have been at least a few thousand years by Earth standards. And maybe because they were traveling so fast and for so long, they did so that enough time basically passed that the universes did split, merged back, and Earth was reformed in the same format as it did in Aionios, but in a more organized, natural way. For the purposes of this video, let's just say that the two universes, when they merged, they formed a new planet, right? Which is built upon from the ruins of planet Earth from Klaus's time, right? We're just gonna call this Aionios just to be more easy to understand, because this is gonna be a little bit confusing. So, to start this little section again, the people of the planet lived, they grew more complicated technology, they eventually become Sumerians, they leave Aionios, and they find a new planet, and they decide to call this new planet Earth, and they settle down there. Then, when the white whale leaves faster than light speed travel, they crash on a planet called Mira. They see that the Sumerians are not there, and it is then implied that they actually landed on Aionios. Due to them running around for so long, they might have actually circled back and not realized it, making it so that they actually circled back to where Earth was, Aionios, like before the universe is split. Because again, as I'm saying, in this theory, Aionios is just a base name for the newly formed Earth once the universe is split. And then we have Earth 3, which is what the Sumerians found later on. But basically this makes it so that the intro of Xenoblade X and about half of the game of Xenoblade X shows us parts 1, 2, and 3 of the Perfect Work story in a blended and mixed format, and it still starts with Klaus's experiment. But the other half of the game also sets up the next story arc for Xenoblade set after part 6 of the Perfect Work story, which is told in Xenoblade 3. And it also makes it so that the main story of Xenoblade X is set sometime after Xenoblade 3. So I'm sorry if I explained that a little bit bad, that little section can be a little bit confusing, but basically, at least I tried. So I hope you guys were able to understand what I was trying to say with this particular point. But with this point, it does also kind of explain everything else about Planet Mira and its connection with Aionios and the other Xenoblade universes. But there are a few more issues with this point than the one right before it. And those issues are actually kind of big, honestly. First, we know that it's probably been hundreds and thousands of years since Klaus did his experiment by the time Xenoblade 1 and 2 starts. So, for the white whale to have been traveling for that long in faster than light speed in the span of 2 years for their own time, it would indicate that they would have to be going an extremely fast speed, which is fine and all. I mean, again, we can definitely imply that they had faster than light speed travel, but it does seem a bit of a stretch that they were traveling for that long of a time when looking at Earth time. And if they were, how were they not affected by the universe splitting and merging again? If it's just, you know, them traveling and then crashing on Aionios, basically. And again, when I'm saying Aionios, I mean Earth 2.0, you know, the planet that gets formed when the two universes mixed. So it kind of just doesn't really make sense that they weren't affected in any way if they were going, even if it was faster than light speed travel, because again, we know that there was a cataclysm in that universe. So that is one issue. The other issue is probably the more complicated issue. So I'm going to try to be more organized with this particular point. So before we actually get into those points, just to recap, because I feel like this particular point I'm not explaining it too well, let's just say it like this. So Klaus's Earth, let's just call it Earth 1. The planet that is formed at the end of Xenoblade 3, we're gonna call it Aionios just for the purposes of this video, or Earth 2. Earth 2 is basically going to be Mira in the future. That's what we're saying in this particular theory. And then we have a new planet Earth that we're calling Earth 3 for the purposes of this video, just to make things easier. Earth 3 is the one that the Sumerians in this particular theory which would be, you know, the humans from Xenoblade 3 eventually leave Earth 2 to find. So again, Earth 2 is what we are saying becomes Mira in the future, right? Hopefully that makes things clear. Now, just a little bit of the Sumerians on Xenoblade X's lore. Xenoblade X's lore says that the Sumerians came from a different universe and that their home planet was Mira. So again, that's why we are kind of saying that Mira is Earth 2. So with all that said, let's just get into the issues with this particular theory. So why would the humans at the end of Xenoblade 3 in time, many generations, want to leave Earth 2.0, which again eventually becomes Mira in this theory, after they just got their planet back when the universes fused together at the end of Xenoblade 3, in order to find a new planet and make that their home and then call it Earth, which also has the same countries and flags that Klaus's time had? That doesn't really make sense. Again, if you go back to that original video, I say that Numa had all the information that Klaus gave her. That's fine. You know, they find a new planet and they decide to call it Earth. Okay, I don't mind that, but to have the same exact flags, culture, everything else, I think at this point they would have kept the culture that they have and evolved on that, not go back to how it was before. So it doesn't really make sense that they would find the planet that, you know, we see at the beginning of Xenoblade X. The second issue is, why would the humans from Xenoblade 3 eventually make the Ganglion alien species? Because again, the Ganglions is just a big army of different species. So why would they make all those species, especially the one that Luxor is from? If they have their ether and their technology to do the things that they need, they don't need to create beings in order to help them and be slaves for them. It doesn't really make sense. So while editing this video, I'm actually coming up with another theory, and I also just realized another issue with this particular point as well. So another issue with this theory of Mira being a future Earth is that if people from Earth 2 become the Sumerians before Xenoblade X takes place, then the timeline would be like this. The Sumerians come from a different plane, has a planet called Mira, leaves it, finds Earth 1, leaves descendants, they become the humans from Earth 1, Elma visits Earth 1, Klaus does his experiment on Earth 1, and the white whale leaves Earth 1 before the experiment. The events of Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 happen, the universe is then repaired and fused to be one again, and the two planets also become one and becomes Earth 2. The humans are now called the Sumerians. They leave Earth 2 sometime later, and eventually the white whale lands on the future somewhat abandoned Earth 2 that is now called Mira. And then they hear about how this was home of the Sumerians that left it and found many other planets, but had descendants on Earth 3, and those descendants were the humans. So then here's where we get into some issues. If the humans of Earth 2 become the Sumerians we hear about in Xenoblade X, then who were the Sumerians before them? The ones that left behind descendants on Earth 1. That doesn't make sense that it's the same group of people on both ends of the timeline, unless there's time travel or some kind of paradox that came from the universe splitting and merging. And once again, even if there is time travel or a paradox, why would they have their culture and the countries be exactly the way it was on Earth 3 as it was on Earth 1? As I just talked about in the previous point, I would assume that they would continue with their new culture, implementing the technologies that they might have gained from Numa. And another big issue with this theory is, if there is no time travel or paradox happening, then it doesn't really make much sense, because they say that the Sumerians found their Earth, not a Earth. So they find Earth 1, not Earth 3. As going based off of the theory that the Earth from the intro of Xenoblade X is the same as Klaus's Earth. So really the only way around this without time travel or paradox would be that the Earth we see the white whale leaving at the start of Xenoblade X would actually be Earth 3, making the full game for Xenoblade X, including the intro for it, be set so far after Xenoblade 3, rather than everything after the intro of Xenoblade X being set so far after Xenoblade 3, which then means that the Earth we see in Xenoblade 3 is not Klaus's Earth, which is fine. I mean, I've said before that Xenoblade X could be taking place somewhat alongside the other games timeline-wise, and I've said that it could be taking place after Xenoblade 3 timeline-wise. But I still stand by the intro Xenoblade X showing Earth 1, which is Klaus's Earth. Anyway, I guess there's just an extra theory here, and this is that extra theory that I came up with when I was analyzing this extra issue. So the extra theory being that Xenoblade X's Earth could really be Earth 3, and the intro is not showing Earth 1 at all, but what happens to Earth 3, and they eventually land on Mira, which is Earth 2, which again is the world that is created at the end of Xenoblade 3. And that's fine, but again, why would the humans from Earth 2 leave their culture behind and revert to how their culture used to be on Earth 1, but now on Earth 3? The only explanation for that is if Earth 1, which again is Klaus's Earth, was not like our Earth at all. They did not have the same countries or even the same technology, and that they basically make our Earth be Earth 3. And our culture ends up growing on Earth 3, and our countries grow from Earth 3 as well. The only issue with this particular solution to this theory though is that we've seen a good amount from Klaus's Earth in terms of culture and technology. It is very similar to how our Earth is, so I doubt that it's not the same Earth as our Earth. But it is possible that it was just similar but not 100% identical to our Earth, and that the 100% our Earth would be Earth 3, which would be the one Alma visits in this new theory instead of Earth 1, which again would then mean that everything for Xenoblade X, even the intro, is set after Xenoblade 3. There's a lot to move around here and things can be explained, but having Earth 2 be Mira would need some serious explanation. But as I've said many times in this video and in the other video, my personal theory on how Xenoblade X and Xenoblade 3 connects is how I presented it in that first video about how Xenoblade X and Xenoblade 3 connect, so definitely watch that if you haven't yet. The link is in the description. And my personal theory about Planet Mira is the previous point that I have made, which was, or 2 points ago, which is that Planet Mira is a metaphysical planet. Those are my 2 personal theories about Planet Mira and how the connections between X and everything else goes. But going on now to the rest of the video, because I'm recording this as I'm editing, so let's just continue with the rest of the video. Honestly, it's easier to think that the humans that the Sumerians become were the original humans from Klaus's time, and not that it's the next generation after Xenoblade 3. So in other words, not that the generation of Xenoblade 3 becomes the Sumerians and eventually the humans, especially given how Takahashi uses so many real-life elements in the Xeno series. So having the Sumerians and the humans be the Xenoblade equivalent of the ancient aliens theory that we have for our own race, which basically says that we humans were engineered by an alien species. Many versions of this particular theory says we were engineered by a race called the Anunnaki, which basically the Anunnaki is a group of gods that the ancient Sumerians worshipped along with a few other cultures. And given that the Sumerians worshipped the Anunnaki and how there's a group of aliens many people call the Anunnaki, we can see that these aliens that modified us in many ancient alien theologies, given the information that researchers have found about both the aliens Anunnaki and the gods Anunnaki, it seems to indicate that both Anunnaki are basically the same ones, which would mean that the Sumerians were worshipping the aliens Anunnaki, which they saw as gods. Which all of that basically means that Takahashi based the Sumerians lore in Xenoblade X on the Anunnaki ancient aliens theory and how the Sumerians worshipped them as gods. Further proof of this is the name Sumerians being very similar to the Sumerians. So it just makes sense that the Sumerians really did become the humans from Klaus's time, not that the humans from Xenoblade 3 becomes the Sumerians later on. But even so, I still really like this point, and I do think it is a possibility that the humans in Xenoblade 3 could become the Sumerians, and I also think that Mira could be a future Earth, or well, Earth 2.0. But I do think it's a bit more easy to understand the option that Mira is technically just a metaphysical planet, and since Zed is a metaphysical being, he could have some connections to the higher power we see Noah talking to, who could have made Mira in a metaphysical realm. So Zed might have seen that through the people's deep subconscious, given that he is connected to everything, and he again could have based Aionios off of Mira, since humans did land there before. Again, Mira could be a planet created by a higher power, while Aionios could be the mirror world created by a lower power. So with all that said, like I said earlier, there is a fifth option to these theories, and that fifth option is that Mira's connection to Aionios and Earth could just be a mix of all the four options in various ways. But with all that said, this is just something fun to think about and theorize about using information we got from all of the games. And I still stand by what I said in my Is Xenoblade 3 and Xenoblade X connected video essay, and I think that they do connect, and if I'm wrong with it, well, then I will still think that they connect in some way. There has to be some connection with Xenoblade X and the other games, even if it's not what I talked about in that particular video. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see what will come next for Xenoblade. But only in time will we really know for sure if Xenoblade X is connected to the rest or not. So with all that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a few more Xenoblade 3 videos coming out soon. I still have to write the script for some of them. This one took a little bit longer to be done because I've been very tired and working and only really having free time around 10 p.m. at night. So in fact, I'm actually recording this during work because it's so slow today at work, or at least the audio for this. So that's how busy I've been. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I really hope that you guys see my next few Xenoblade videos. With all that said, yeah, let me know what your thoughts is on this. If you have not seen that first part of this video, definitely watch that. The link is going to be in the description. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this and what your theories are for Mira and Aionios. With all that said, guys, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.